Hello, everyone, and welcome to another lifting episode. This topic today is one that's actually come up a couple of times, not only in sessions, but just in basic discussion between us, my mother, and also other clients as well. This kind of thing has popped up, like the lanes people are in, or essentially the soul missions that they're on. And I've actually said in other little recordings, and this, I believe, this is where we take this off from one of the Galactic Interstellar Council Infinitum episodes. As a matter of fact, I did add a little bit into that, so this more likely takes just a little bit from there, where basically how soul missions can become derailed, and how there are people in spirit on occasion that I run into that have said to me that they didn't accomplish all that they thought they were going to be able to do. And people assume that, when they leave, go over there, yeah, their mission is done. And in a lot of cases, I've noticed, yes, this is true. But there have been a few lately that said when they got down here that they had to completely revamp and restructure how they implemented some of the things they came in to do. Which I found actually rather fascinating because it basically turns some of these other ideals about the solid soul missions and things of that nature into more of a misnomer. So yeah, I find that very fascinating. So if you want to do the affirmation blessing, we can go ahead and get into the discussion.
Sure. So welcome everybody who's here with us today. We really are grateful that you join us and choose to listen to some of the information that we try to put out for all ears to hear who want to hear them. Today we recorded this session on, it looks like the 28th of August in 2022. And again, we're going to be talking a lot more about the relationship between what some people refer to as the oversoul, and what some people then refer to the part of the oversoul that is currently walking on the surface. Some people refer to that as the avatar body, let's say, that a part of that soul is experiencing through. So if you've listened to all of our work, we've talked about bits and pieces, and today we're going to add more to that discussion. So again, as we always like to open with a little bit of an affirmation and blessing, and close with a little bit of one as well, to open and close kind of the circle of conversation. So welcome and blessings to all that are joining us now and in the future. We hope this gives you pause for thought of a bigger picture than what is currently your thoughts about your own lives. It's hard to imagine how old that you truly are, and the amount of experience that you have collected through the oversoul experience, as well as all of the different experiences that you've traversed through to add to your grand library of information. So welcome to the show. We hope you find this conversation interesting, and we'll just kind of get started. So basically, again, I'm just going to say this probably in 1 or 2 minutes, just in case somebody's watching this as a standalone show. So if what we try to help people understand from our perspective is that you are so much more than you could ever imagine. You are a great grand soul that is so much bigger and has so many more experiences than you can ever imagine. As all of those experiences collect, you have this enormous library of information from experiences that you have had, but it's hard to cram all of that into the visage that we currently are in. So there is a relationship between the oversoul and the human being that's potentially walking on earth and having experience, although you can certainly have experiences more than just on earth. You can have experiences all over the place, and most great souls do. But what we're saying is that that collective library can't be shoved into this visage that you currently see. And so when you come down to have an experience, you don't typically always remember. Sometimes you may have glimpses of other lives and other experiences. But as we say, but with that big, huge amount of library that is you, that wouldn't it be great to be able to learn for a moment? Like if you weren't a great orator, can I go to my library when I was a great orator and bring that down for this speech I'm about to give? So kind of checking out books. And that's one of the skills that we're all learning. But it's a very interesting thing because many people believe that an oversoul truly oversees, almost like the puppeteer to the avatar, the puppet. And it really doesn't really work that way at all, because part of the goal of the oversoul is to experience things. And so in order for certain experiences to go through, when a part of the oversoul comes in for an experience, there is things like free will and different choices. Now, an oversoul may or may not step back because usually there's some sort of a mission or some sort of something, a template that, you know, of the experience that someone desires. And can an oversoul maybe interfere? Possibly, it may choose to do so to keep something a little bit more on track, and but it's not as much as you think. And so we're going to talk about that and some of the interesting issues that happen when a part of the soul decides to come down and have an experience in this expression, and some of the challenges that happen during that process.
Yeah, it's very fascinating what I've been able to decipher and run into. Now, this is how I have seen the oversoul so far. In some cases, you know, you have all cases actually. I've seen the grand library of all the experiences that are currently happening and have happened, and sometimes it will happen. You know, as all time is moving as one. Then you have an in between sometimes, that in some cases this being is in a stasis chamber. You've heard me talk about this many times on Interstellar Council and in other various recordings about some of that alien tech. We won't go into that spot in this one, but other than what I'm saying now, where they're in a stasis chamber, and then from there they've incarnated as the human. There are other cases where they're up walking around here still, like in the case of some members of the Mind Federation. They like to do that. Asgardians like to go the other route. Personal preference. Arcturians like to go the other route. It's a personal preference. So with this though, then I see it as more like, say, an electrical plant, electrical substation, and then like the box that's on the house where you get the electricity to, it's dialed down. This does not mean one is a puppet for the other. I want to make that clear. You are not a puppet to the oversoul. You are not a puppet to any god either. You have to think of it this way, where there are situations the oversoul has gotten into that may have infected them in some way, polluted the energy in some way, some dark expression that they connected to, or they are here doing an audit. You are here conducting an audit, yes, for the oversoul, but at the same time, the mission that the oversoul comes up with, for one, may end up getting derailed. Two, at the same time, you have the ultimate choice here, being the expression at the moment, with telling the oversoul, hey, slow down a little bit. You know, if they come in with the bulldozer mentality like mine did, Torang Kao, I had to tell him to slow it back off a little bit because it was just too intensive. You can do this. People think that it only goes one direction. It does not. You are attempting, and I said this also on some shows with Ryan as well when we did the episodes on the actualization of the self, God, and the mantling, with the Chim and the Zero Sum episodes for Elder Scrolls. What happens here is you have the oversoul and you have this auditing process. You are actually taking the better sides of both, and all, even sometimes if there's three components, taking it all and grounding it here as one I am presence. Now, you can't bring in the totality of the library here. That's impossible. But the auditing and then mantling them together, here and grounding here. People think it's an ascension process where you're going up. No, that's soul trap garbage. As Isaac was saying on Interstellar Council as well. What happens is you ground fully here. You are an I am presence. But yes, are you one with creation? Yes, but you have your own individual personalities. If you're hearing some religious beliefs where you're going to meld with creation, or that you're a we or a they or a them, or you're all over the place, no, that's getting rid of your individual identity. People think that's involved in an ascension process. Oh, I'm going to lose myself. Well, then you're gone. Why would you want to do that? You want to keep yourself. So just like what Frank Frazetta did in his, and I always have to refer back to how he did this because this was perfect, where he came here, he said on his own mission, nobody sent him, came in and improved the artistic community by inserting his ideas and his style, which people still use today. That is the footprint that he left here. Then he went back and reconstructed his library based on his creations here because he found it his favorite lifetime and his favorite expression. I've seen that on multiple occasions by multiple beings that have done this, going into spirit and rebuilding something they had here and there. And people would think, oh, it's the other way around. You're trying to bring that here. It's both. People, you got to remember, it's both. And if you have some really creepy infected parts of the oversoul that was in some really creepy expressions, why would you want that? That's a thing. Why would you want that? Some people always say, well, it needs to be there to be able to teach and to be able to fuse things properly. That's not necessarily true. Of course, you have your positive and negative sides here. It's dualism that is being shed. You are a single being with both positive and negative emotions and experiences. You don't need a bunch of overage crap that the oversoul has accumulated. Information-wise, that's helpful, not the energies. So here, of course, you have positive, negative energies as well, but it doesn't mean that you aren't essentially a good being. But if there's some evil, twisted expressions that some of the oversouls got into, that needs to be audited, and it needs to be audited fairly efficiently. Here you are doing this, but you are auditing some of the other past life junk and your lineage, as we always say. But it does not mean that the oversoul gets to say, okay, we're going to cram all this into one moment. That may have been the plan when you came from there to here, as in also the channeling that Jeffrey Hunter gave us as well. When he came here, he saw that there was a slightly different layout of things than what he counted on before he came into human form. When he came here, he looked around and went, oh, I'm not going to be able to accomplish all of this by the time I leave. That's what the oversoul is saying to itself, essentially. Where he came in to implement certain information that other celestial type beings were also bringing in as well. Like you had when Max Spears came through, he was more of an information gatherer, that he audited information. The Jeffrey Hunter, we came in, he implemented certain ideas here that would improve the state of things down here. That's what he told me. Well, when he got here, he said by the time he left, the parts of his soul mission had actually been derailed. And this may be hard for people to believe, because the belief that is out there right now is that as you go along, you're accomplishing every single perfect thing in divine timing. Yeah, there is a truth to that. But when you have overage that comes in, just slams and slams and slams, and it also regurgitates and repeats and wash, rinse, and repeats things that may not even need to be in existence anymore. And then the oversoul is pushing and driving forth. How are you supposed to do that if you're a basket case? How are you supposed to accomplish these things? Now, are there wild cards that end up on all ends of the spectrum, like a Darth Vader type figure that came into balance of force, yet he went to the evil side? Yeah, that has happened, and that's usually a lesson to everybody else not to become that. That's usually how that works. But in this situation, some of these beings were saying that as they went along, the dynamic of how they experienced things was not the same as the blueprint that they had come up with in their mind or wherever they were. What they used to think or feel with there, it's not what it didn't completely mesh. And that's why I always compare it to a helicopter pilot scanning a terrain, going, okay, we can send people in here and do this and do this and do that. Or a scout, when you're on the ground, you see everything that's on the ground, and it's like a helicopter pilot trying to see in someone's apartment. Yeah, they can see through the walls. Maybe they can see the people that are in there. You can see them sleeping, awake, whatever. But when you walk in there, you see the detail of the apartment.
So it brings up one point that we're trying to make, that your oversoul is not omnipotent.
Yeah.
So the oversoul itself is learning and growing and experiencing and choosing, as these experiences happen, choosing and refining its own identity. And so how it represents itself to others that are out there, meaning names could change, right? Name of an oversoul. Oversouls seem to change their names a lot.
Like we change socks, basically.
Yeah, I mean, meaning a tonal way, a tonal representation of what they define themselves out at this time.
Like Toran Kull may not be the library's name after a while. I may choose to stay me as I go back to that. It's
for example, you know, we did talk to Elvis, and Elvis's oversoul is like, what's your oversoul's name? Elvis, because I think I truly identify with that life expression right now and whatever qualities that he had. But, you know, from what we can tell, that there are oftentimes changes. So again, you know, names that are chosen, names that even enter the channelings that galactics bring in, they oftentimes, it may not be their exact name, they're choosing the name that in the tonal way represents what they're trying to bring through or represents themselves at that moment. So that's a very interesting thing. And again, not omnipotent. So what you have again is that whole concept of book knowledge versus experience. So you've had these lifetimes, you've got all this book knowledge plus experience, but the energies at this current present moment are different from back then, are different. So you may make up a template of something you wish to do and accomplish, and you're trying to take into account everything that you can guess so far about what's going on, but then you step foot in it. And so there are times when things have to shift, change, alter, because the one thing, and we've said this before on other shows, but it's worth repeating right now, that one of the things, you know, Chris, that you've noticed over all these years, that's kind of, what is this about? I don't quite get it, is the ability to look at somebody to see their potential, their highest potential seems to be really prevalent to him. They're not there. I'm not, you know,
that person may not be in that spot. I have seen this multiple times in multiple sessions where sometimes this does not happen, where this situation that I see doesn't come to pass, because the person themselves makes a different choice. And that's very important to understand here, because you're seeing their most optimum form that the oversoul wants for the avatar, or that the situation by which they are at their best vibration, at their best non-toxicity point, whatever you want to call it. A friend of mine was seeing her spouse at one point as seeing fully healthy and fully, present, fully happy. This completely did not come to pass by the time he passed away. And I thought that was actually, that's not, when I say interesting, I don't mean that I agree, that it wasn't tragic. When I say interesting, I want people to understand that. What happened was that she even tried, what she did was she wrote a fictional character about him in a script one time, and basically tried to co-create him being healthier, which it started to happen, but it wasn't fully the way she was completely envisioning it by the time he passed. So this is actually important to understand, where when I'm viewing somebody, I'm seeing their most optimum form. Their avatar, though, and their oversoul, for one, might have different ideas of how to continue to get to that, or they have different ideas of what that state of complete balance or mantling looks like. And that's why audits are so important, because of the fact that the oversoul may be pushing something through to be able to prove itself, but the avatar either pays for it, becomes unhealthy, or what have you, or there is such a mismatch that that optimum self isn't necessarily completely compatible with here, or they may choose to take a different route where that doesn't happen ever. So there's so many variables in there across the multiverse, even of how that could happen. You might be picking up somewhere that the oversoul is connecting to another presence in the multiverse where that actually did take place. I found that out as well. But the point of the conversation is that you may be seeing as a seer, if you're a seer listening to this or watching this, you might be seeing where somebody's potential goes that may never be met by the time they leave this form. It'd be a good thing if it hits, if it comes about, but the chances are it might be somewhere in the middle that it meets. And one could say, yes, that's somebody's fate or somebody's destiny or whatever word you want to call it. But soul missions can be derailed, and their optimum form may never be completely met. I actually ran into some spirits that have come to me very recently. Even ghosts that I passed on the other side as well, all above and between, that have said that they did not finish what they came here to accomplish. You hear that from a lot of ghosts. They did not accomplish what they wanted to accomplish here. Then when they're in spirit, they say, yes, they're fine, they're healthy, they're okay. They want that message to their family, but at the same time, some of them have said, we still did not completely accomplish what we, as the entirety of the library set out to do. We accomplished enough to make changes and waves on the earth. We did not accomplish the entire set or blueprint that we conjured up over here. And we may choose to come back or not to do the rest of it. And I'm thinking, okay, that's a complete opposite of what people currently believe takes place here. Oh, you run your soul mission, then you die. Or you complete your soul mission, then you die. Even though when our friend Brian came through, he said your soul mission, or what you're doing is complete when you pass over. Yeah, there is still a truth to that, but at the same time, that completeness may not mean the entirety of the blueprint that you set out to accomplish. At the moment, what they were doing was sufficient, or the oversoul thought it was sufficient at the time, to have the avatar pass on. But it doesn't mean they accomplished everything down here. It's not always completely possible. Think of the entirety of the library, and you're pulling a few books out maybe to send down here, out of that library. You may say throughout your day you have a few books on your shelf. Would you really sit and read several books? No, you're busy doing other stuff. There's distraction. Think of that during the soul mission. There could be things that send you off course and derail some things that you have to really focus and co-create on, and not just rely on the oversoul's complete guidance in that area, because you are the one implementing these things. The oversoul is learning and auditing from that process.
So sometimes people have said, and probably again with the conversation we're having, the comments that others have made now make a little more sense to me, regarding the fact where people were saying, man, you know, the best of souls are here now. Or, doing your soul work is, the crawling and the face down in the mud and hanging on like a little kitten. So, a lot of those things make a little bit more sense when you bring into the considerations the forces that are hard to recognize fully what it means and how it will affect, the visions, the avatar that's here, and those energies when you actually step foot and start trying to do what it is you're going to do. That you really, in a sense, are challenged. How well can you adapt? How well can you go down the river and change streams and do what you need to do? How are those skills that you currently have? Now, again, I don't think anyone should be thinking during this conversation that it means people fail.
No.
Because it's not even about that. It's about collecting information and experiences And then again, one of those times where it gives, the soul that came down, the oversoul, the opportunity to reflect and review and gain more knowledge about even how difficult it is, so that if there is a choice to come in here or go somewhere else or anything like that next, there's more enhanced information to be able to, be able to judge, to be able to make maybe a blueprint where even more is accomplished because there's been some, experience to grow from. Again, we're not saying people have to reincarnate here, but it's kind of funny when you really look at how many lives people actually do decide to, experience in this particular expression and doing it on Earth as a human. There's a lot of lives people are living doing all of this. So it's not, for many people, one and done. It's very rare that it's a one and done. And, but it's not a failure. It's really putting together the best plans, the best goals, the best everything, and then getting in here and seeing how you're doing. But it has been amazing. This conversation we're having now really is based upon a lot of perplexed souls and a lot of conversations with, different either oversouls or different persons who are like, man, I'm not even really quite sure yet what happened, when I got there and why my mind was thinking in a different direction or this, that, and the other. But we really haven't done a lot on galactic history. Later down the road, when we start doing more on that, it may make a little more sense, because again, we've always talked about how intelligent a side is, both sides, be it malevolence, benevolence, whatever you want to say, the intelligence behind it, to be able to, especially malevolence, to influence, to get you to do things for maybe not your highest good, even somebody else's highest good. And while you're doing that, you're probably not working too much on your own particular mission, unless, and it's really true, and this is something hard to swallow, there are times that we lead lives where it's going to be terrible, and we're doing it to gain the physical experience and the knowledge related to being in that victimhood, let's say.
Yes.
It's intentional, and it is hard to fathom that. And it certainly would be hard to fathom that if you thought this is how many lives you led. Why would anyone want to do that, being their one and done? But again, we are proponents that it's not a one and done. Very rare, usually souls that come in and do that have this extreme pendulum swing, and somehow amongst their whole life, they get a lot of stuff in one lifetime, but it's very, very rare. So if you're able to contemplate that we've done it all, that we've had lives where we were benevolent, we've had lives that we've been very malevolent, we've had lives that were in between, we fulfill things that we want to fulfill. Sometimes we're totally derailed. Sometimes the best learning is the failure. You know what I mean? To understand the forces better, so that you could potentially do it better the next time. So no life experience is a mess, but it's really hard right now to even begin to have a conversation when people are so tired that they still want a savior to come in and save them, when they indoctrinated a belief system that says we're all going to poof and be on the same mindset all at the same level,
like mass awakening, mass ascension,
right,
all that.
And or you're supposed to let go out of half yourself and only live in happiness and joy. So you've got conflicting ideology out there that would definitely have you not want to listen to us, which I say, if you don't want to listen to us, that's fine, because all you have to do is turn it off. But we want to give a different perspective, because for many people, these other ideologies, they're really not working for them. They feel internal conflict with them. And so we want to have these conversations, so give you something to think about. And no, don't think of anything going on in your life or yourself as some sort of failure. Even if it's rough, there, you know what I mean? Some of it is overage, but some of it is desired experience, for yourself, and or that relationship with the oversoul. Sometimes you're going to come in and you're going to go through some crap to balance out other experiences that have gone on within the oversoul, where this is your time to go through a little crap to balance out the energies of before.
And sometimes that concept is called a sacrificial archetype. I don't particularly care for that term, but it just means that you come into burnouts the rest of some cycle really hard and fast and pretty bad. Sometimes that always ends in some fairly ugly death, and those people tend to carry a lot of this crap energy with them. Also, some animals do this too, where they take stuff from people and carry it on. Think of a human version of that. And I'm not saying like Jesus taking sins or anything like that. No. That's not what I'm saying. People would try to classify it as that's the same thing, and no. I'm not saying for religious reasons. I'm saying people come in with the rest of something in their own karmic cycle of some kind, and they kind of burn out hard and fast, and then they take something from the genetic lineage and all that, getting rid of the curses and everything, and they're gone. And some people see it as a very horrific form of change. Sometimes it traumatizes people around them. But I've seen like the atomic bomb version of an incarnation before, like that. And that type is not as common as, say, some of the lesser forms of it, but I have seen that other one before. And another point I wish to reiterate that was in the second, and I believe I touched also a tiny bit on the third episode of Galactic Interstellar Council Infinitum as well, whereas if beings are basically sending you on a soul mission. I hear this a lot in the channeling community. If they're sending you on a soul mission, I would rethink what those parameters were. No one sends you but you. The other thing is more Galactic Federation crap. And I said that in that recording. I'm not going to go completely into the galactic politics. We've done that ad nauseum. So I'm not going to go completely into that, but it is all interwoven. Also, the same goes when you're leaving this world. I've also said if somebody's coming for you, no, you go to the right of the light, as her brother said in a previous episode, and you go on with your own intentions to real spirit. And you will then learn what it was that you were completely here doing.
Right. And normally you will see some family or some even.
Oh, you'll see them, yeah.
You'll see them, and it may not even, who knows, it may not even be family that was in this lifetime with you, but you will recognize. You walk to them. They're only a couple steps away. You don't need anyone.
They're like literally right there. You don't need anybody taking you. It's just I love it when your brother said that to the right of the light, not the tunnel. And I don't need to repeat any of the soul trap stuff. You guys know it already from previous episodes. I'm just saying to the right of the light. And I always thought that was a very interesting way of seeing it. And that comes from ancient mythology as well, going to the right of the tunnel. So that I find very fascinating. This is something that needed to be spoken about more, because people are under the assumption that it is this one-trick pony, and it really is not. We are in a realm of extreme dynamics, and I've used this analogy. I even said this on other episodes that we've done as well, where we're watching this show where these people came back in time and kind of incarnated themselves in people that were dying, and they came in to change the timeline, but their government or the group they were part of in the future had a certain dynamics of how they thought certain plans should play out. And what happened was when they got here, boots on the ground, they saw, oh, this has to play out differently than what our bosses were planning out hundreds of thousands of years in the future. One example was they were looking back at the profiles of people that they wanted to inhabit, And one of them was someone's Facebook profile, but they didn't put into account that person lied to on their Facebook profile and had a different thing of what they were portraying about themselves. They based someone else's compatibility, the one that was kind of leaping into them, based on that information, which was false or that was not completely accurate. So the people that came back had to kind of scurry around and figure things out on the fly and change some things based on what the bosses told them. And the bosses reprimanded a couple of them for not following the plan, but they weren't seeing the whole thing because they were the helicopter pilot, you see, and the others were boots on the ground. The same goes for like the old show Quantum Leap, where he came in and changed some of the dynamics there, where it was really the character that was playing God in that show was basically telling him it was him that created this whole plan to begin with from an oversoul standpoint. Not many people know the ending to that show, that it's exactly what we were talking about, and that he, as the avatar of that, had ultimate choice of how he wanted to continue with it when he confronted the benevolent source creator's consciousness. Basically, God, quote unquote, was telling him, you now, in a space where it was like this quantum space where he met him and said, you now have the choice of continuing this mission. You have always been in the driver's seat of this. I'm just basically creator of everything, but you have individual choice of how you want to proceed with this. And he kept conceding to God all the time, saying, no, I concede this to you, Jesus, take the wheel, sort of thing. That's where the character of Sam was. In the end of the show, he never got home again because he could not concede that he was the one in the driver's seat. And many people never saw that I've ever spoken to have ever remembered the ending to that show. That's exactly what happened at the end, and that was a very important thing that was said at the end. That all he had to do was shift his intention and say, "If you want to go home, go."
So this is one of those things where it kind of goes back to some of the things since we began speaking publicly in 2017, where again, we really don't know. You don't know what your family and friends and loved ones and just regular people, what they are meant to experience. Now, we do absolutely agree that there's overage out there, and there's again washing.
And that could discombobulate you.
Right, and that could mess you up. But again, and of course that means there's a big difference between you're supposed to run into a pothole today versus a head-on collision. So, that aside, the point that I'm trying to bring out now is that there's a good chance between trying to even things out within the oversoul, gauge the energies that are here, plans not completely playing out, that it's going to be rare that people aren't meant to have some lumps and bumps along the way, challenging times in their life, okay, because of all of this. So, if you really care for somebody, the goal, which we've always said is, I just wish for your highest good. Meaning, I don't know what that is. I know that I wish for things to go along the plans that you have set out in your oversoul and without dealing with all this overage and all this oppression. I really hope the best for you. So I wish you your highest good. But many people want to try again in their entanglements with others, try to decide what they feel that's meant to be, and or another false belief system that everybody's life is supposed to be pain-free.
Okay. And here is a very good point that goes along with that. It's a concept I call brick walling. And spirit is actually very famous for brick walling. And many people think that some of this is evil oppression because of the implementation of this. And I don't always agree with the way sometimes spirit plays this out, or like some of your soul family plays this out, where they'll say if you were in a situation where you could have gotten by slightly easier, like I ran into somebody who was stopped for drunk driving and had to go through the whole DUI thing and even some jail time because of it. What happened was, it was just a road. Nobody was supposed to surround him, but this person was kind of subconsciously, picked up a beer and drank it. It was like almost like a subconscious reflex action. It was not about the fact that the cop stopped her. What the overall spirit was doing was to end the reflex action and end an unconscious cycle that was actually going on in this person's mind. Well, I found out in spirit, it was this person's father that actually, out of nowhere, had a cop pull up behind this person, which then this was a form of brick walling that made it so you couldn't go forward, you had to go left or right to be able to shift around this roadblock within here and here is really what that was designed to do. But I was sitting there thinking at the time going, I looked at this person that was in spirit and I said, you really didn't need to play this out this way. There could have been a number of variables you could have played this out as, whereas this person could have just reached home safely and not had to go through the stress of jail and courts and all this other nonsense. And he looked at me and went, yeah, I could have played it out that way. I didn't, for one. And two, what would that person have actually learned about that behavioral subset that was kind of hidden in the subconscious background? It was more like a reflex action that needed to be shown. How in the hell would that person have known that had they drifted back to their house in that state, which we could have guided them to that very easily. And I said, well, that also falls in line with what the bad guys do. They will negatively brick wall you, but then they'll crash you through the wall and various other walls through, and then try to portray it as some kind of lesson later. Oh, no, you weren't worthy enough. We had to just go and throw you into a wall. That's the bad guys. The spirit world and soul family was going, wait a minute, this person is continuing this cycle unconsciously. We have to now step in and show what that reflection looks like, where the oversoul is basically saying, okay, in this audit process, we have to show what this looks like. That's a form of benevolence. I don't, again, always concur with sometimes what spirit does. That's me. I don't always concur because I always see there's some easier ways that some of these things could play out, or that these oversouls could play out, some of these soul mission parameters. One very recently, I will add, was a major brick walling to people that I was talking to. I won't go into the specifics of this except for the fact that this one person's oversoul was so obstinate that no matter what I did to get him to change what this avatar was doing, he just was basically saying, that's nice. You know, one of the biggest dick oversouls I've ever run into. And it was very hard to even communicate with this oversoul. Even my oversoul to this one, even Torang Kal was looking at this one going, God, you know, like that's like, he's like, I didn't even do some of that crap, you know, stuff like that. Well, then ended up screwing over someone else in the process. And then all of a sudden, just slightly before that, this avatar got into a situation where they were abducted by military and they were swapped out or replaced. And I'm thinking, oversoul, what in the holy hell were you thinking? And when I see that form of brick walling in that way, I said, why was this allowed? And then I was told, saying, by other beings like Isaac and them, how do you know this was supposed to be a lesson for that person? How do you know that oversoul did not implement this to present this situation to others, you being among them? And I said, okay, that's a weird form of brick walling, but okay, I'm game. What is it? Well, then he's like, all right, we will show you. A few minutes later, I see this text coming from the other person. And I see that this person was trying to contact someone for assistance in this. It was the relative of the other person saying this wrong had been committed. Then what happened? This person took the military drill sergeant routine against this person and said, stop whining, you know, chin up and, you know, stop crying about this and continue. And I'm looking at this going, I see what they were trying to say, and it was directly to me. Both of these people were more of a lesson to myself, and this person was a lesson to this person and myself. So it was weird how that played out. It was more of an unconscious behavioral thing of my own that needed to be audited, that was being reflected back at me, saying, well, that's unfair. Then I realized I was treating other people the same way this parent was treating this other person. And I was thinking, okay, now I get what you're trying to say. It's acknowledged, I understand now. So that's how spirit and how some of the guides and stuff were working in that respect. But this guy over here was never intended to change, because that one was there to actually give lesson to the fallout of people around. And it took me a minute to figure that one out. It took me like a month to figure that one out, that this was an unsolvable case, that this case was never meant to be corrected, because it was the soul that was trying to come in to show certain behavioral subsets and subroutines that others may not want to become. And some would say that there are others in history, different dictators and different warlords and all this, that showed some of these same mirrors. But I'm looking at this going, I don't want to be like this. And I was thinking this myself. And then Isaac goes, hence why you met this person. And I'm thinking, okay, but Isaac was one of them, and some of the spirit world was one of them, that allowed me to engage in this to begin with, to get invested, and then, just to get the brick wall out of it. And this was a total replacement of a person. You don't see this very often. You do not see this once in every eclipse or blue moon practically anymore. And this was something that that I was also being shown, that there are just some situations you don't win. And the winning thing is just to walk away with the information.
Well, again, that whole concept of what does winning mean?
And what does it look like? And getting the information is the winning part.
Right, because again, anyone who has any sense of compassion wants winning to mean that everyone's life goes as easy as possible, that, everybody overcomes everything, every disease is overcome, everybody's life is sweet, and, that we have now made a heaven on earth. And that is a myth. And that is not actually some of the true functions of what's going on out there. And does it make this whole scenario that, with these people involved as a malevolence? No, not in this instance. Sometimes these things are actually of a learning, meaning true benevolent. Now, again, we're not talking overage where you, again, are getting a head-on collision when it just should be you get a flat tire.
Yeah.
So we're trying to help people understand a little bit more of some of the bigger dynamics that are going on. Thus, you always should wish people their highest good. But I guarantee you really don't necessarily know what that is. But if you're wishing the best for somebody, you would hope that whatever they've come in to do, that they're going to fulfill it. And, be it crash and burn a few times to learn some lessons, and or in this instance, to also learn lessons, but to also demonstrate to other people certain things that they may or may not want to emulate, be a part of. And so all of these types of interactions are going on. But I think let's get to the point of, let's bring someone in to talk about it.
Yes. Give me a moment here. Yes, I believe we've been going at least a little over, it looks like almost an hour.
Yeah, so we're trying to keep these discussion
very short,
but shorter, shorter.
I shouldn't say shorter than what we have been doing. I noticed you've been noticing a lot of piecemealed ones together of other information. You can thank Ben Orkfoyle for the 7 hour and 20-minute one that we put up a while back, because he wanted every bit of information that he ever said crammed into one file.
But our goal is we're going to become a little better bite-sized chunks than what they currently have been being lately. So
yes, and we say that, but if you see some of the ones I've uploaded up before you've seen this particular episode, we've sent it probably a couple of times, but it always seems to end up giving a smidge too much. So we're working on it. We're working. It's a work in progress. So all right, I know Isaac, you're the one that wanted to come in. You came in because we did a conspiracy sector earlier today, as of this date. So he said, stop picking your nose and let me in. Okay, so all right. For the record, that's not what I'm doing. It's very itchy in this room. So all right. Okay. He goes, I'll give you itchy. So it's like right. Yes, you could. Isaac, around one of the holograms are here. You can There we go. Yeah, there's a lot of that activity around lately here. So okay, Isaac, give me 2 seconds. Okay. Through the crystal, don't touch my eye. No, stop it. Okay. He's in here doing this. Like this, he's touching my goober of eye. So okay. All right. Stop it. Okay. Stop it. Just come through. Okay. Yes, indeed. Yes, it gets a little old watching him do this, so I just decided to poke him in the eye. So, in this, I do want to say, yes, that bit of information that he was just mentioning. Yes, this is 100% true. I did indeed. I assisted in the brick walling, but I cannot take 100% credit. This is from some of your soul family in the true spirit world of that assisted in this particular instance. I shouldn't say assisted, they were the grand architects of some of this, along with his own oversoul and some of the auditing and mantling that needed to take place in this, with certain behaviors that were having overage prey upon them. He asked for assistance in this particular area, and this is the information that was received in this. It was more of a mirror brick slap to the face in a certain way. I will not go into some of the behavioral subsets. Just know that if you are exhibiting certain things that may be off of who you are, there are certain mirrors that will pop up in your face, and some do, that could be worse than that situation that you are in, to show that you may not be in such a bad situation after all, or things that you must correct. I myself, even though I'm in physical form and still learning some of these things myself, in where I am, I can honestly say this was it. In what you said about the different soul missions being derailed, yes, there are those instances, but there are soul family that do come in to assist at certain times. You can call it guides, but that's not necessarily always the correct word. Now, there are beings, of course, that you know of that will try to derail by saying, oh, you must be in this lane, when you're the one that chooses the lane to begin with, intuitively, and discern through that. There are also instances where, again, you saw this person replaced, and you yourselves were wondering why, on certain levels, this does not happen to you. Well, you are not the only ones asking this. In the world today, there are people asking this, why, if you're doing the same thing as someone else and that other person cannot seem to break the same glass ceilings that you do. Well, this is more of an annoyingly simple answer, because they were not meant to. They got only so far, and did they get derailed in some areas? Yes, but again, with the person that you were speaking about, they were meant to go exactly the way that they did. Maybe a bumpy ride, mind you, but this was the point. Also, in, say, your SSP type of situations, whereas you ran into things that may have been part of the soul, the higher self or oversoul, whatever you want to call it, mission parameters. Yes, you went through that to run some of that energy down again before you came in here. Was there an inordinate amount of torture with that? Absolutely so. Was there overage? And still is? Absolutely so. Trying to derail you. But at the same time, there are some things, certain glass ceilings, that you are supposed to break. This does not mean this applies to every single seer that you run across. This does not mean this applies to everyone that has the same skill set. I want to emphasize with that. Just because you have reached a certain pinnacle and the other has reached a certain pinnacle, this does not mean that you have the same mission. You may have a different mission in a different area. It does not mean, as you say, one trick pony type of technique. Now, does it help if they get to a certain frequency and don't back down and always move forward? Absolutely so. But the type of profession that you're in might not be completely kosher with what that other person is doing. Yes, is it always good, again, to stand your ground, be sovereign, move forward? Yes. And also be a pain in the ass to oppression? Absolutely. But that person may have a different implementation of how they wish to implement their soul mission, or they might have the same thing. They might have some of the same things, but they might have a different way of doing it, even if they have the same skill set. Some are identical. Some will do exactly the same thing. You just have to discern which is which. And now I will go into questions.
So I find it, I always find these conversations very interesting because we may have said things for many years now, again, people that have followed us from the beginning, that you can cut a pie in 50 million ways, right? And so if you think of each soul learning and growing in their own experiences in their own way, where again, there can be these misconceptions or whatever from everybody that you're at this level, you should be doing this or you should be doing that, which again flies in the face a little bit of that you can cut a pie in many different ways. But it also brings up something that everyone must inner reflect. Where did it come from that I didn't realize I adopted a belief system that if you're this place, you should be doing this? Where did that even come from? So I find it in,
or perceiving ways a certain way, or doing, yeah.
Right. So, it's an interesting conversation because, when anyone, doesn't matter who you are, you have to sit back and find out, where did that come from? What did I not realize I had adopted as a belief system? Thus, it causes me to judge other people if I'm thinking that they're not doing what they're supposed to, right? You know what I mean? That they're not doing or standing up or taking care of something that, they have the skill set I have. They should be taking care of this like I do, or they should be seeing things how I do, or of course it's only benevolence that we speak with, or whatever it is. But it's an adaptation of a belief system that now you need to reflect and maybe say, oh, that truth is no longer the truth anymore.
Like, say if you are at a particular skill set, yes, should you use it for good, and should you use it? Yes, always exercise the muscles that you have, but you may have another implementation. You have a few friends that you've spoken to that do have a same skill set, but use it only at home, and they integrate it into a completely different area. Some do it to business or mercantile, other ones do it in home life, et cetera, et cetera. This does not mean that they would go professional like you guys have, nor does it mean that they would appear to be breaking the same glass ceilings. They may be doing it in a way that you're not perceiving the same way. Yes, is it smart for, like, say, someone doing the trench working to learn how to disable demons, how to get rid of curses, things of that nature? Yes, that is standard information for that skill set. But are there those that would even take that and implement it a certain way? That's what's called creativity. Yes. There are other ways to slice that pie. Yes. Is there a standard set of information and knowledge? Yes. Well, especially like if you go into alchemy, say spells, procedures surrounding all that, any of the stuff you guys have talked about, crystals, stones, orgone pieces. Yes. Yes, there are right and wrong ways of doing those things. And you guys have run into those things yourself. That is not quite what I'm meaning. Yes, if that's your chosen area, yes. But it's like if you were a doctor per se. There's many types of doctors, yet it's still a medical profession. Like you have heart doctor, brain, other parts of the anatomy, foot, knee, chiropractic, any of those things. Do they all do the same thing? No. Do they study that specific area of the profession? Yes. Is there one catch-all person that knows all these things? Absolutely not. Just like in science, you have certain, say, mathematicians, you have quantum physics, you have temporal physics people, you have engineering specialists, you have equipment specialists, you have astronauts, you have people that do all sorts of things in those fields. Chemistry, alchemy. Does it mean that all of those people know every angle of this? No. This, even in your medical profession, even in the areas you've been in, there's still divisions there of the different specialists. Or let's say there's a paramedic that brings the people to the hospital. You have all, or a policeman or a fireman. It is all different. This is how that same profession works. And some of those souls may have come in to discern certain things to improve that area of that field. Some may never learn. So, and some may bring back that to their over and soul and go, oh, this was just an information gathering mission, nothing more. You'll be able to discern some of these, whether you should help course correct some things when you're around them, or if you should leave it alone. There are some things you've run across recently that you really need to leave the hell alone. And you both know what I mean. You were just mentioning it. The other things, there are some things that, yes, should you stick your nose into? Yes, gingerly. People you run around, in certain situations, even that are of a similar type or the same type. Oh, those are people that you interact with quite profusely and are on the same type of path and the same type of wavelength. Different. You will notice the differences as you go along.
Well, thank you. So, again, what is your, I don't recall if I asked you this on another show, but I would like to hear it from another person's perspective. So what is your perspective of the relationship between the avatar and the oversoul?
You guys have said it correctly, where yes, there is an overall library, and yes, there is an avatar, and sometimes there is a bleed through from other lifetimes, bits of the giant version of Torankal, even though he's in stasis somewhere. Yes, that is that. And of course, the oversoul that by the same name. In this, it is the stair step, as he's saying, but it is a lot more complex than that. That's just a human mind perspective on what is being viewed. What it is it's all happening at once, and what needs to be accessed at a given moment is, or what needs to be learned from and utilized here is, it shifts and changes, just like if you walked into a library and grabbed a book and read the first page of the book. It's something that you happen to be looking for and pulling that book off the bookshelf from the card catalog, or Dewey Decimal System, or however the hell they do it now. But out in the cosmos, it's slightly different. But that'll change at some point in human history. But what I'm trying to say is, it is actually all happening relatively at the same time. The human brain at this point in evolution cannot grab hold of the entirety of the library. You would literally implode and then burn, literally shrink and then burn. You literally saw a good representation of that in the fourth Indiana Jones movie, when the lady wanted all the knowledge of the cosmos and she incinerated. That would literally happen. So you cannot have that happen with the entirety of your own library. But you can help the human avatar evolve, as also the human avatar can then help the oversoul expand and evolve the cosmos from that point forward. So you have the blueprint correct.
So, but again, just to reiterate what you're saying, because you just mentioned again that, we're kind of just scratching the surface of our understanding. We've been told many, many times that at the most we know this much, right? Not very much. That, but when we think that something may have some basis in truth, we're just kind of compelled to have these conversations with everyone, to help everyone else who want to think about it all, to expand a little bit in their thought process of what life is all about, what our experiences are all about. So, but remember, no, and I think you agree with this, Isaac, but please say so, that we're not going to leave here in this lifetime knowing it all. So this instant putting proof of all this grand knowledge or whatever, kind of take that off the plate and just understand that we're in a process of, beginning to understand more than we've ever known, being in an avatar, and we'll continue to grow and expand through this lifetime and or any more that you may or may not choose to have, in a visage standing here on Earth, but you'll still gain more if you choose to have experiences elsewhere.
Yes, and the choice is the thing, you see. It is ultimately choice that drove you to be here. Again, as he said, if others are directing you here, yeah, you might want to look a little closer at those bits of events that led you to that, if you're remembering that at all. Just know there are some false belief systems that are being dismantled here by people such as yourselves, even if you don't realize it. And it is being mantled into a more of a, I don't want to say higher understanding, but a greater understanding mixed with what you have already. Just like people assume that religions will all collapse here because of the untruths surrounding them. That is completely false. It will be changed and shed over a period of time. This is why you have people like Valiant Thor in this to begin with, to help people mantle the old and the new together and create something even brand new the cosmos has not seen before. Taking and shedding some of the untruths and keeping the stuff that works. Even though it was built on a basis of lies, it does not necessarily have to remain as such. But just like what he called it was the dualistic seed, and something he said in his book, where it would go from what you know the concepts of good and evil and go into a different perspective and perception. And there was one out there that said that he had that correct. But that particular being you call the brat did not necessarily have all of his shit together himself when he made that statement, but it was most profound agreement on his part. But
and it is appropriate here, because really the bottom line of really what we're coming across as is, wow, we're going to have all kinds of experiences. And again, initially, as being a little bit younger, labeling them as either good or bad. And even in our conversation today, we're saying, it's kind of like maybe we should be just thinking about some of this as experience. And so I kind of agree that our thought process are going to shift some of those concepts of duality in our minds. You know what I mean? And wondering if should these experiences just be happening for an experience that's needed.
Yes, there is also, of course, good and evil too, but at the same time, your perceptions on what that truly is will alter. Now, will dualism go completely away? No. In what you know as good and evil, yes, that's going to change into different perceptions and perspectives. But will there always be some darker thing that you have to confront? Yes. It's not going to be always kumbaya. It's just like in Star Trek. Yeah, they're more advanced, more good. They're better in a lot of areas, have evolved in a lot of areas, but what do they confront out in the galaxy? They run into some creepy crap out there. So still, there's some things you have to negotiate around still, if that's part of being in this experience.
Well, thank you. Well, trying to keep this to a reasonable amount of time, Isaac, I am just turning it over to you to bring up anything that you wish to bring up on this subject that we haven't asked a question about. So go ahead.
Yes, this is actually a fascinating subject, and it cannot necessarily be talked about enough. There are so many misnomers that you guys have not even discovered yet about this very subject and others like it. And you are doing very well touching on some of these other subjects that need to be questioned, very much like your Princes of the Universe conversation. I don't think you realize how much that really pissed those beings off when you did that particular program. That and the one you did after, not so much as number 2 of that conversation. So many conversations like it will have to be had. And there had to be some people here to have them, because others, again, you can say, do you have some protection? Of course. You have major internal protections, and you do have soul family looking out for you. I'm not saying others do not, but there are some things in both of your mission parameters, as you would call it. Even the terms for that will change as you go along with your learning about certain things as well. But I'm using the terms you're familiar with now. Whereas even saying mission isn't necessarily the correct word. You will run across this. You will start to break some of these glass ceilings. It may cause confusion in some areas with people that are familiar with some of these terms. The same goes with what you've already created. But it will and already has broken some of these glass ceilings, as you call them. Even that term will also start to change after a while. There are certain words and terminology that you're familiar with, certain concepts that you all listening are familiar with, that are you really familiar with them? Are you really as familiar with them as you think you are? This is what you will be confronted with in the not too distant future as time passes. So I believe I can end this here. I know you are trying to keep the show length down to a minimum. Yes, this is actually a good thing. There have been some gargantuan files hitting that YouTube recently, but it is understood why that it all is all in one place. Just know that there are several, you call them ADHD people out there that are having trouble with the links of the files. I say that in all loving jokingness. So this is where I will end it. Thank you. And blessings to everyone listening. I always seem to be leaning that way when I do this. Okay. I don't know why I do this like I'm leaning against the computer screen like this. I don't know why I'm doing that, but okay. That seems I seem to be doing that if I'm not sitting in the middle. I like this. I don't know what the hell that's all about, but he just said as he was leaving, he said, because you're retarded. Okay. All right. Okay. Now yeah, that's him. And also he said keep finding reasons to laugh is what he said. So now he's going back to his place in the yard. From our perception, it would look like he just sits in the yard. He does not. Just everybody know when he has an edifice, that is just a face. That is not necessarily him just sitting in the yard chilling all day. No, that doesn't work that way, folks. Many people think that's what some of the guys do. They do not do this. So, or beings we call guys. So I'll leave this here. But if you want to add any more, I know you're the one that comes up with the affirmation blessings on the fly. I usually have to think about them for
Well,
a while.
this one's kind of simple. Again, blessings to everyone, and truly, from truly our truest intention, I hope you feel from us now that we truly wish your highest good for whatever it is in this life you are driven to experience for yourself and for your higher self. And we just send out blessings to everyone and hope you get something from this conversation. So you guys have a great night. It's kind of funny. Well, I'm staring outside a window because we have a large contingent of quail that are gathering on our fence right here, which is kind of funny because I haven't really seen that before. But I guess I just personally believe it's that the elementals are sending their blessings as well.
Yeah, there's several on the ground here too, and they're all up on our wall looking at us at the moment.
Yes, we're looking at them. So we're going to go with my wish that I hope it's again the entirety of the elementals as well, wishing you your highest good. So you guys have a great evening, and we'll talk to you again sometime.
Yes, and remember, nature tends to get more peaceful. You add birds, all of that to the yard, and that's we have seed out there for them too. But they were all here looking at us, and helping protect the conversation. So thank you, everybody. Hopefully, you enjoyed this episode. Bye bye now.